Hi everyone. So I've recently attended Burning Man, and I want to talk a little bit about what Burning Man is, but then look at it from the lens of being a spiritual process, which is a little bit maybe unusual for some to look at because it is also a massive party in the desert. But I think there were a lot of learnings from this experience, and it's a huge opportunity for growth. So, what is Burning Man? We have 75,000 people from all over the world converging on a very wide desert lake bed in the middle of Nevada. It's one of the most remote locations. There's very few people living around there for many miles around. And actually just driving there all the way from Reno, where I am in this hotel now, 2 hours out, there's basically nothing there at all. So it's 2 miles, no gas station. There's a tiny little gas station here when you get to Burning Man, but other than that, you're really just going through the desert. Extremely remote location. So all these people are converging over there. And one of the tenets of Burning Man is self-reliance. So you actually bring everything in that you would need. So some people have taken this to a more extreme extent. They have generators. They have huge RVs. They bring like a sauna with them and all of this stuff. But whatever you might need, you actually have to plan that out. Now I went extremely spontaneously. Went there on the bike. Wasn't carrying that much.
We're most of the way to Burning Man. It's been a wild ride so far with hailstorms, flooding, all kinds of wind and cool weather out here, lightning, the works.
But I did collaborate with a lot of the different groups that were there and helped them, with camp deconstruction, etc. And kind of found my way into several of the camps, almost joining one of the camps and semi-joining some of these others. The cultural diversity is incredible. I met people from Brazil, different parts of Europe, all different parts of the United States, of course, and they've come together, given different cultural offerings. Each of the different camps makes their own events, activities, and everybody comes together as well. So let's also now dive into Burning Man as a spiritual process. And I know some people might have a little bit of a hard time maybe wrapping their head around this, especially if they've may have heard some things about Burning Man before, because again, it is a bit of a wild party. I hadn't been.
Wow, so many lights and everything here. What was that?
Into something like this before. The techno scene is quite big. It's huge. So a lot of this techno music, that beat that kind of gets into your system, into your heart, and kind of rocks things around a little bit, and and lasts all night going with that, and goes into the sunrise, and people then have after parties beyond that, which was a little bit unbelievable to me. I did make it to sunrise a couple of times, but after that I really had to call it a night. The spiritual process I found was active throughout the whole experience of Burning Man. One of the things that I found remarkable was the level of consecration, if you will, of the temple that they have established. So there is a temple at Burning Man, and that's the second most sort of well-known or appreciated structure beyond the statue of a man himself, which is burned at the end. So there's a very large temple at Burning Man. A lot of people go there. Energetically, I found this structure to be quite consecrated, to have energetic value and throughput and being an actual energy center. At least around the small area that the fences of it occupy, which I found extremely impressive. So it had a consecration level similar to two temples in India, where if you go into them, I can also notice the energy in those areas. So they managed to establish that at Burning Man in the desert, and that is probably a function of so many people coming there with intent for growth. And as a result, that area, even though it was a temporary structure, which also got burned in the end, right, in a very dramatic way, with everybody in silence, looking at it, they had that kind of level of consecration there in the desert, which is very special. I ran into one group, and I got this sticker, and it said, "It's not the burn you want; it's the burn that you need." And that actually rang true for me as well. So you might want certain things out of the experience, maybe some of the more flashy things about it, but you do. It is kind of a spiritual process where you wind up getting what you need and what moves you along. So, what makes Burning Man a spiritual process? I think one is the different situations, the unusual situations that it puts you in, and the growth that results from it. It was similar to a rainbow festival, and in my mind, I did keep comparing it to that experience, where there was no cell phone coverage for the entire week for the vast majority of people. And this actually, I thought in the beginning this was a function of no cell phone towers, but it actually wasn't quite that. It was more that you have so many people there that the system, the bandwidth just couldn't handle it. So maybe normally there's like this little tiny tower, and if you have a couple people there, they can get signal. But if you have 75,000 people, it just doesn't work. So you're in the middle of the desert, no cell phone signal, and that lends itself to immersion in the experience. And then also what I found is how this worked is that all of the the people there and the different events and the offerings lent itself to having experiences that resulted in spiritual growth. So I learned a lot of lessons from these chance encounters. So meeting perhaps hundreds of different people, having very meaningful conversations and connections, and often learning exactly what I would need to learn, or being in certain situations, right? Maybe I was out of water, right? I didn't bring very much, so maybe being out of water, which was like a day 2 experience for me. I had about enough water for one day, and I was expecting, I don't know, be like going to like a hotel in the desert or something like that. That was like my expectation, right? Giving the ticket price what it was, but it wasn't. It wasn't that case. So I was in a lot of situations, food situations, water situations. I had a lot of shelter situations. So I expected, being the desert, there wasn't going to be rain. I had a single layer on my tarp covering, so the 2 that I otherwise would have brought, I totally flooded out. So again, meeting people, seeking some shelter situations, and I wound up learning a lot, and I found that the experience and difficulties I was encountering were mirroring and bringing up the processes inside myself that were a bit in need of being addressed. So the kind of the insecurities, a lot of the remaining insecurities and anxieties within myself would come up during these situations that Burning Man was creating. And these were the exact emotions that needed to come to the surface to be addressed. So I think it's very important when going to something like this in life in general, but also in something like this, like understanding these situations are going to come up. Interpersonal conflicts, come up. So there are a lot of times when, I was welcomed into something.
So we have some really interesting culinary innovation over here.
Welcome to Dick-shaped Foods.
All right. And what is
banana
this?
cream pies. We got some dickleback shots. We got corn dogs. We got mini corn dogs.
Oh, hey, neighbor.
Sausage.
When things worked out well, there are also very many times where things, did not work out well in Burning Man, right? So interpersonal, rifts or conflicts or not seeing eye to eye, right? You can kind of come into somebody's camp, gel a little bit, and just as quickly that can, ungel. So, dealing with impermanence. So, interactions with other people, they go well, they don't go well. A big thing for me about Burning Man was, how do I, let that go? How do I step back? I have had huge issues with, attachment problems. I get kind of attached to people. And one thing that I worked on at Burning Man was lessening that sense of attachment, how that forms in that kind of cleanness. And Burning Man was the perfect place to do that, because there's so many people there, so many camps there, and kind of the ups and downs and the volatility of those situations. So we come into agreement, we kind of share some kind of resources for a little while. One party may decide they don't want to do that, or they want to go a different direction, or they want to do this or that. Comes apart. On to the next, interaction, the next person or group of people, and not being caught up into kind of that looking in the rearview mirror. And this is still something I'm working on, but I worked on it a lot at Burning Man. Not having my mind looking in the rearview mirror. All right, what could I have done? What should I have done? I really wish I was still hanging out with those folks. Being able to get into that a little bit less, or be a little bit attached to that, a little bit stuck on that. So Burning Man, it's a very unusual experience. I know it would be unusual. I just didn't know kind of exactly what to expect or how it would play out. It's the largest gathering I know of this kind. And I've been to a rainbow gathering in Germany before, and I plan to do more of those. I'm very excited about that. There are differences. There are tons of similarities, but there's also differences between these two. I think the difference of Burning Man is the scale. Kind of having that many people. So rainbow gathering, 2,000, 5,000. I'll see. Maybe it gets to 10,000. I'll see in the States how that works. But 75,000 is a lot more, and it also brings in people with divergent backgrounds and interests. So people who are more spiritually minded, offering workshops at Healing, which I saw at Burning Man, which I would definitely offer next time around. But there's people coming for other purposes as well, including those related to this this kind of partying aspect with this techno music. And you could see that as taking away from that core maybe contingent of spiritual solidarity and all of that, but you could also see that as adding other dimensions to the experience, which I found to be the case as well in some ways, where you have a sort of a broader spectrum of people that are out there as well, and that can add to it and add to the situations and the complexity of the environment, and I found that complexity created a lot of opportunities for different situations to emerge that then led to growth. So Burning Man, it's really an incredible experience. I definitely plan to be back next year to be offering energy healing both at this and regional Burning Mans next year as well. And I found it quite inspiring, what people can do when they work together, the openness of people to make new connections and friendships. I wound up feeling very close to some of the camps I got involved in. I was extremely impressed with the generosity of some people there who kind of took care of other people as a family. That's really what it felt like. There was one instance it was called the art car camp, right? So it was all about fixing people's artistic vehicles. So people make all kinds of interesting vehicles. This camp was dedicated to the repair and fix of that. And there was a gentleman there that really brought all this stuff out. So came days earlier, stayed days later, brought extensive, if you will, infrastructure all the way there on multiple trailers, not for any kind of monetary compensation. On the contrary, just to help out. So help out with people who need these art cars repairs, but then way beyond that, to help out with the group of people around him and new people that came in, basically to take care of themselves in the festival. And he was taking care of people almost just like they were his own children. So I was very, very touched and moved by this individual and others like him. So it was an incredible experience. I'm going to be going to this and other similar events that are coming up much sooner. If you're interested to hang out with me at those, experience them, you can drop me a line, and I'll look forward to hearing from you guys soon. Take care.